Welcome everyone. Learning Tanya chapter 49, starting chapter 49 today. And first discuss the overview of chapter 49. This chapter concludes the theme of the previous chapters, meditation on the greatness of God and the extreme selflessness on His part in reaching out to us, small creatures, inspiring us to mirror God's selflessness in reaching toward Him, and how this process is represented in the blessings leading up to Shema, the blessings leading up to Shema Yisrael that we say in davening. The Alter Rebbe explained in the previous chapter. If you want to follow me, I'm on page 113 in the Chayenu. So the Alter Rebbe explained in the previous chapter that since the light and life drawn down from God infinite, anything that comes from Hashem is infinite, Ein Sof, as its name indicates. That's what the meaning of Ein Sof, infinite. Therefore, in order for this finite world to be created, the divine light had to undergo a multitude of contractions, tzimtzumim. This was the only way that finite creation could proceed from the infinite light of the Ein Sof. In order for finite creation to proceed from the infinite light of Ein Sof, it had to go through numerous, or in this language, a multitude of contractions. Were it to have been drawn down in an orderly progression, finitude would have never resulted. So it has to have some kind of concealment and contractions in order to enable the creation of finite world, finite beings. Even though the particular aspect of the nature of the obscuring and concealment of the infinite light of the blessed Ein Sof, the descent of the world, descending as they do, ever lower, until this material world was created, are too numerous to count, and are of many diverse kinds, too many to count, and many of diverse kinds. As it is known to those who have tasted the tree of life. In general, there are three types of major contractions. That are connected with three general worlds. In every general rule, or within every world, there are many details. Yet in general, there are three levels of powerful and comprehensive contractions, giving rise to three comprehensive worlds, each category consisting of myriads upon myriads of particulars. These are the worlds of Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya, creation, formation, and action. For the world of Atzilus, the world of emanation, is godliness itself. Since Atzilus is godliness itself, the world of emanation is godliness itself, it is not considered to be created ex nihilo, but rather it is called Atzilus, emanation, which means an emanation from, and an extension of godliness, and illumination, an illumination which comes from godliness itself. In order to create the world of creation, which consist of the higher souls and angels, whose service to God is the sphere of the intellectual faculties of Chabad, wisdom, understanding, and knowledge, which are closed in them, godliness is revealed to them in an intellectual manner through the three intellectual faculties of Chokhmah, Bina, Das, wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. And they, the souls and angels, apprehend them and receive influence from them, from Chabad, which illumines them, in order to create a world whose creations are not wholly nullified to God, as is the case in Atzilus, that it's completely nullified to God, in order to create something different than Atzilus, something different than the world of emanation, but are only capable of knowledge and comprehension. And it will be noted that comprehension entails an awareness of one's own being. In that comprehension presupposes an entity who is comprehending. It has to start off with tzimtzum otzum, with great contraction, powerful contraction. A mighty contraction was necessary in order to ensure that the light of godliness manifest in Atzilus should be hidden, and that only a contracted form of light should illuminate and create creatures of the world of Bria, which are on a level of creation ex nihilo. So too from Bria to Yetzirah, in order for the world of Yetzirah, a world of far lower than Bria, to be created, there again had to be a powerful contraction. For a minute portion of light, minute that is in relation to the light found in Atzilus, which closes itself in the world of Bria, is still in a category of infinity, or still in the category of infinity in relation to the world of Yetzirah. So that the light of Bria had to undergo a powerful contraction before it was able to descend into Yetzirah. It is unable to close itself in the latter except through contraction and obscuration, so too from Yetzirah to Asiyah. So, in simple words, you cannot have enclosement from one world to another without major powerful contractions, major concealment. There too, the light of the world of Yetzirah had to be considerably limited to enable it to descend into the world of Asiyah. An elaborate explanation on these three contractions is given elsewhere in order to make them more accessible to our poor intellect. In the purpose of all contractions, to create our physical body, the human being, the human physical body, and ultimately to subjugate the other side, the evil inclination, and to have the superiority of light over darkness. By having light replace darkness, and even more so when the darkness itself is transformed into light, at which time the preeminence of light is felt to an even greater degree, this is accomplished. When a person elevates his divine soul and his vivifying soul, a soul which receives its nourishment from klippus, from the other side, from darkness, but through men's service in Torah and mitzvahs, is elevated and incorporated into holiness, thereby elevating the souls, together with their garments of thought, speech, and action, and all the powers of the body to God alone, as has been discussed earlier at length. This is the purpose of the progressive descent of the worlds. The ultimate purpose of all the descents from level to level and world to world is this physical world. It is here that a Jew is able, through his divine service, to effect the subjugation of evil and the preeminence of light, supplanting darkness, replacing darkness. And as water mirrors the reflection of a face, just as water reflects an exact replica of one's face, so too with regard to the heart of man to his fellow man, the love of one person to another results in the other person's loving him as well. As God, as it were, laid down and set aside, figuratively speaking, his great infinite light, and has stored it away and concealed it by means of three different kinds of contractions. As So what is the purpose of Hashem creating all these contractions beside creating a physical world? Is, as the Alter Rebbe writes, and all this because of his love for lowly man, in order to raise him up to God. So the whole purpose of these contractions, concealments and limitations, and the condensing of power and godly energy, bringing it from a finitude, from infinite to a finitude state, was to elevate the human being. To raise him up to God. This means to say that God created a world in which man may serve him, and by doing so, man is uplifted to God. But how is it possible for love to bring about contraction? When one love signifies kindness and expansiveness, while contraction and concealment characterize severity. What did we say? That Hashem created all these tzimtzumim, all these contractions, to ultimately bring us closer to Him. But how is it possible that through limitations and contractions we're coming closer to Hashem? Usually it goes the other way around. When you love somebody, you're being kind to other people, when your state of mind is a state of expansiveness, you create closeness. When it's the other way around, when your mindset or your state of mind is a state of strictness and sternness and severity, then you are creating the opposite, creating richuk, distance. So how is it possible that by God's manifesting all these contractions and limitations and concealment is actually intending to bring us closer to Him? So the Alter Rebbe answers this implied question by quoting or pointing out that we find that love too also can bring about contraction, as in the Gemara now quoted. The Gemara says, Ki ava d'chekes habasa, for love impels the flesh. This is from Baba Metzia, tractate Baba Metzia 84a, so that the flesh will not impede it, which means because of God's love for His people, He, figuratively speaking, set aside His great light and concealed it through many contractions and so on, this being so. So Hashem is putting Himself aside, so to speak. His great light is pushed aside, allowing us to come closer to Him. How much more, and an infinite number of times more, is it fitting that a man also should relinquish and set aside all he possesses, both spiritually and physically, and renounce everything. להניח ולעזוב הכל, כל אשר לנפש הבוס ולהפקיר הכל, בשביל לדבקו בו יזבח בדבקו חשקו וחפצו ולא שום עניין מבייס ומחוץ לגוף, לא נפש ולא ממון ולא ישובון, in order to cleave to him with attachment, desire, and longing, without any hindrance, within or without, neither of body nor soul, hindrances from within, nor money, nor wife and children, hindrances from without. None of these things should hinder him from cleaving to God. Maybe we can add, in our times, not even COVID should be an hindrance from cleaving to God. By renouncing them all, he sets aside even his most important needs for the sake of his love of God. So the takeaway from today's Tanya, from today's essay, there is an infinite divine energy, Oir Ein Sof. This energy is downgraded to allow for the world of Atzilus, a pretty divine world. In turn, we have the world of Bria, the world of creation, and Yetzirah, the world of formation, and then ultimately our world, the world of action, the world of Asiyah. The point of this all is for the world you live in, so that you are created and that you should make a difference. Buchim to you.